I've for a long time been interested in a really small set of questions, mostly around how cognition and culture work. How does that contribute to understanding how new things emerge, become stable, and under certain conditions are transformed? That's really, kind of the core of what social change is. And to understand how boundaries come into existence, if you get very abstract about it, you move away from boundary maintenance or boundary creation as an empirical question. And then you also don't have any understanding of why some boundaries are threatened and some others aren't.
We're really interested in, most broadly we're interested in how economic inequalities sort of get into the family and shape our experiences at home. We're looking at what sociologists think of as precarious work, right? And so when we think about precarious work, we think about low wages and few benefits, people who work unstable and unpredictable schedules. These practices begin to complicate the distinction between what it means to be working and not working. Introduce a real fluidity in what it means to sort of be a worker in the contemporary economy. Because we're interested in how these economic inequalities here in precarious work sort of flow through the generations and potentially constrain opportunity for the next generation.
What you have is this mass, and what we're doing is drawing lines and figure out what's going on. Sometimes when we draw lines, we create problems for people. We put them in boxes and it's hard for them to get out of it. We want our work to empower people, not to disempower them. Boundaries can be fluid at one level, but if you dig a little deeper, all that's happened is that inequalities have been reinscribed in another way that amazingly end up with placing the people who were disadvantaged before again in disadvantage. Now, this is not the only ways that things can be rearranged. Clearly, one of the central places where this is happening is in sexuality. That's a different kind of fluidity, potentially.
The way we understand the world is really a battleground in which we're all kind of struggling to assert different ways of being, of relating to each other. Mm-hmm. If there's one dynamic of social life that is always a kind of law of the social world, is that there is always constant change. So everything is constantly in flux, and right. To me, as a political sociologist, the interesting questions are that fluidity or malleability of social life that still operates in the context of power relations. And so, who has the power of imposing those forms of fluidity or malleability? What forms of power stand behind those changes in social life?
Indeed, who are the forces behind fluidity? And I think capitalism, this is Marx's argument, of course, that capitalism itself, unleashed, unregulated, will generate incredible dynamism and fluidity. So those are the institutions, and it's an interesting question. Who has an interest in fluidity? Well, one might argue that these financiers have an interest in fluidity, but students like yourself, or workers who had jobs in blue-collar positions or even in white-collar positions, they are losing out with all this mobility, fluidity, uncertainty, the riskiness of contemporary life. There are traditions that sort of stabilize relations of domination, and destabilizing those relations of domination can be liberating. But the question is whether you're going from one prison to another prison, whether you're actually, under what circumstances that freeing of the domination of tradition leads to actual freedom or to being incorporated into new forms of domination. That's the big question.